You are going to die, not someday in the abstract future, not as a concept you can push away and ignore. You, the person watching this right now, will cease to exist. Your thoughts will stop. Your experiences will end. Everything you've ever known will disappear. And here's what's terrifying. You've spent your entire life running from this truth, and that running has cost you the chance to actually live. Martin Heidegger, perhaps the most profound philosopher of the 20th century, built his entire philosophy around this brutal fact, but he didn't do it to depress you. He did it because he discovered something extraordinary. The moment you truly face your own death, everything changes. The fog lifts. The distractions lose their power, and for the first time, you become capable of living authentically. What I'm about to share with you in the next 15 minutes is not easy. Heidegger's ideas are notoriously difficult. Entire academic careers have been spent trying to understand them, but I'm going to translate his most essential insights into something you can actually use, something that could wake you up from the sleepwalk that most people call life. Before we begin, I need you to do something. Put away your distractions. Stop multitasking. Because what we're about to discuss is the question that matters most. What does it mean to exist? And more importantly, are you actually doing it? Before we dive deeper, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt like you're going through the motions, like you're watching your own life from outside, like you're following a script that someone else wrote, leave a comment. I want to know that there are others who sense that something fundamental is missing. Martin Heidegger was born in 1889 in a small town in rural Germany. His father was a sexton at the local Catholic church. From the beginning, Heidegger was destined for the priesthood. He entered seminary, studied theology, seemed set on a path that was completely predetermined. But then something happened. He began reading philosophy, first Aristotle, then the medieval thinkers, then the moderns. And a question began to consume him, a question so fundamental that he couldn't believe no one had properly answered it. What is being? Not what are beings, the specific things that exist, but being itself, the fact that anything exists at all, the mysterious ground beneath all existence that we take completely for granted. This question drove him out of theology and into philosophy. It drove him through years of intense study and teaching. And in 1927, it produced one of the most revolutionary and difficult books ever written, Being and Time. That book changed philosophy forever, but more importantly, buried within its dense pages was a diagnosis of what's wrong with how most people live and a prescription for how to fix it. Heidegger invented a word that captures everything, Dasein. It's German, and it roughly translates to being there, or existence. But Heidegger meant something specific. Dasein is the kind of being that you are. Not a thing among things, but a being that questions its own being, a being that cares about what it means to exist. You are not like a rock or a chair or even an animal. A rock doesn't wonder what it means to be a rock. A chair doesn't question its purpose. But you are constantly asking, even if only unconsciously, who am I? Why am I here? What should I do with my life? This capacity to question your own existence is both your greatest gift and your greatest burden, because with it comes something that no other being experiences, anxiety about being itself, not fear of specific things. Heidegger carefully distinguished anxiety from fear. Fear is about something particular. You fear the snake, the exam, the conversation. But anxiety is different. Anxiety is about nothing in particular and everything in general. It's the uncanny feeling that something is fundamentally not right, that you're somehow not at home in the world, that there's a question you should be asking but you don't know what it is. Have you ever felt that? That nameless unease that comes in the quiet moments? That sense that despite having everything you thought you wanted, something essential is missing. That's not a bug. That's a feature. That anxiety is Dasein's call to wake up. But most people don't want to wake up. Waking up is uncomfortable. Waking up means facing truths we've spent our entire lives avoiding. So instead, we do what Heidegger called falling into the world. We lose ourselves in the they, das Man in German. Not any specific person, but the anonymous everyone that determines how we think, what we value, how we live. We do what one does. We believe what one believes. We pursue what one pursues. We become interchangeable units in a social machine, living according to patterns we never chose and barely question. Look at your own life. How many of your beliefs are actually yours, derived from your own genuine questioning? How many of your goals came from your own authentic desires versus what society told you to want? How many of your daily actions reflect who you really are versus who they expect you to be? Heidegger would say that for most people, the honest answer is devastating. We are not living our lives. We are living their lives. We are not authentic beings. We are copies of copies, echoes of echoes, following scripts written by no one in particular for no reason we can articulate. Let me ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When was the last time you made a decision that was truly yours, not influenced by expectations, not motivated by what others would think, not based on what you're supposed to do? A decision that came from the deepest part of who you are. Most people can't answer this question, and that's exactly what Heidegger predicted, because living authentically requires something that modern life makes almost impossible: confronting your own mortality. If this is resonating with you, if you feel that Heidegger is describing something you've experienced but never had words for, I need you to do something now. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for me, but because this message needs to reach others who are ready to hear it, and what comes next is where everything comes together. Heidegger's most powerful concept is being toward death. It sounds morbid, but it's actually the key to authentic existence. Here's the insight. Your death is the one possibility that is absolutely yours. No one can die your death for you. No one can take it from you. No one can experience it in your place. In a life where almost everything is shared, borrowed, or inherited from the they, your death stands alone as uniquely, irreducibly yours. But we flee from this truth constantly. We talk about death in the abstract, as if it happens to other people, as in the future, as if we have unlimited time. We say one dies instead of I will die. We treat mortality as a theoretical concept rather than the most concrete fact of our existence. And this flight from death is precisely what keeps us inauthentic, because when you don't face your mortality, you can pretend you have forever. You can postpone the important things. You can waste your time on trivialities. You can live according to the they, because there's always tomorrow to figure out who you really are. But when you genuinely confront being toward death, when you let the reality of your mortality sink into your bones, something radical happens. The bubble of everydayness bursts. The tyranny of the they loses its grip, and suddenly you see your life as what it truly is: finite, precious, yours. Heidegger described authentic existence as resoluteness, not in the sense of grim determination or willpower, but in the sense of being resolved, clear, decided about who you are and how you will live. The resolute person doesn't float along on the current of the they. They choose. They take ownership of their existence. They accept their thrownness, the fact that they didn't choose the circumstances of their birth, their culture, their body, their time in history, but they take up these conditions as their own and make something of them. This doesn't mean rejecting society or becoming a hermit. Authentic existence isn't about physical isolation. It's about a transformed relationship with everything. You can do the same job, have the same relationships, live in the same place, but do all of it as yourself rather than as one. Think about what this would mean for you. What would change if every action you took came from genuine choice rather than default? If every relationship you had was one you truly chose rather than one you fell into? If every moment was lived with the awareness that it's part of a finite existence that is entirely yours? There's another crucial concept: temporality. Heidegger argued that we don't exist in time the way objects do. A rock sits in time passively, affected by it, but not relating to it. But Dasein is temporal in a much deeper sense. We exist as stretched between past, present, and future, and this stretching is the very structure of our being. Most people live primarily in an inauthentic temporality. They're either lost in the past, stuck in regrets and nostalgia, or they're lost in an abstract future, always planning and hoping for something that never arrives. The present becomes just a transition point, something to get through on the way to somewhere else. But authentic temporality is different. It's what Heidegger called the moment of vision, the Augenblick. In this moment, the present is not just a bridge between past and future. It's the site where everything comes together. You take up your past not as fixed fate, but as possibilities you can repeat or transform. You project into the future not as escape, but as the horizon of your own chosen possibilities. And you live the present as the moment of decision, of action, of authentic existence. This is not mindfulness in the superficial sense. It's not about being calm or present to pleasant sensations. It's about being fully there in the deepest sense as the being who you are, facing your death, choosing your life, existing authentically in the midst of time. Second question for you. What would you do if you truly felt the weight of your finitude, not as a concept, but as a reality that presses on you right now? What would become important? What would fall away? How would your priorities shift if you lived with the constant awareness that your time is running out? Write your answer in the comments, not for me, but for yourself, because articulating these things is the first step toward living them. Now, I need to address something difficult. Heidegger's personal history is troubling. In 1933, he joined the Nazi Party and briefly served as rector of Freiburg University, giving speeches that supported the new regime. The extent of his involvement and the relationship between his philosophy and his politics remain hotly debated. I won't defend his actions. They were wrong, but I also won't pretend they didn't happen, or that they invalidate everything he thought. Great thinkers can be deeply flawed human beings. Their ideas can be true and important, even when their lives fail to embody them. Perhaps this is itself a Heideggerian lesson. Knowing the truth and living it are two different things. Seeing authentically and existing authentically don't always go together. Even the philosopher who diagnosed our fallenness into the they could himself fall into the most destructive movements of his time. This doesn't mean we should dismiss Heidegger. It means we should approach him critically, taking what illuminates and leaving what doesn't. And what illuminates in his thought is still bright enough to guide us, even when his own life fell into darkness. So what does all this mean for you, sitting there, watching this video, wondering if these abstract-sounding concepts have anything to do with your actual life? Let me make it concrete. First, you are living someone else's life, not intentionally, not maliciously, but by default. The they has infiltrated your beliefs, your goals, your self-understanding. Most of what you think you want because you've been told to want it. Most of what you do because it's what one does. This isn't an insult. It's a diagnosis. And the first step to recovery is recognizing the disease. Second, the cure requires confronting death, not in the abstract, but for real. You need to let the fact of your mortality enter your lived experience, not as morbid obsession, but as clarifying truth. When you truly face that you will die, that your time is limited, that there is no guarantee of tomorrow, the grip of the they loosens. What others think becomes less important. What you really want becomes clearer. The urgency to live authentically becomes impossible to ignore. Third, authenticity is not a destination, but a way of existing. You don't achieve authenticity and then have it forever. It's something you do moment by moment, decision by decision. You can fall back into the they at any time, and you will. The question is whether you have the awareness to notice and the resoluteness to choose again. Heidegger spent the second half of his life thinking about what he called the turn, moving from the analysis of Dasein toward deeper questions about being itself, about technology, about language, about what he called the clearing, where being reveals itself. He became increasingly concerned about the modern technological world, not just the machines, but the entire way of thinking that reduces everything to resources to be exploited, optimized, controlled. He saw us treating nature, others, even ourselves, as standing reserve, raw material for our projects, rather than beings with their own intrinsic meaning. Look at how we talk about time. We spend it, save it, invest it, as if it were a resource to be managed, rather than the very substance of our existence. Look at how we treat our bodies, as machines to be optimized, projects to be perfected, tools to be used. Look at how we relate to each other, networking, leveraging relationships, building human capital. Heidegger would say this technological thinking has colonized our souls. We've become unable to simply dwell, to let things be, to experience wonder at the sheer fact that anything exists at all. We've lost what he called the capacity for releasement, for letting go, for allowing being to show itself, rather than forcing it into our frameworks. Final question. Have you ever experienced a moment when the technological way of being fell away? When you weren't optimizing or achieving or controlling, but simply existing? When you were struck by wonder at the sheer fact of being, at the mystery that there is something rather than nothing? When you felt even briefly at home in existence in a way that no accomplishment could provide? Those moments are glimpses of authentic existence. They're what Heidegger spent his life trying to understand and articulate, and they're available to you, not through more effort or achievement, but through a different kind of relationship with being itself. Martin Heidegger died in 1976 in Freiburg, Germany. His last request was to have a friend read passages from his work at his funeral. The passages he chose were about thinking as thanking, about the mystery of being, about dwelling poetically on the earth. He was buried in his hometown, the same small town where he was born, in the same cemetery where he had played as a child. The circle was complete. The being who had spent his life questioning being returned to the earth from which he came. His legacy is complicated, tainted by his political failures but illuminated by his philosophical achievements. He changed how we understand existence, authenticity, death, time, technology. His ideas influenced existentialism, hermeneutics, deconstruction, environmental philosophy, and countless other movements. But perhaps his greatest gift was the question itself, the question of being, the question that most people never ask, because they're too busy with beings. The question that opens up the possibility of authentic existence. Before you go, I need you to do one thing. If this video stirred something in you, if Heidegger's words found some resonance in your own experience, share it with someone. Not everyone is ready for these ideas, but someone in your life might be. Someone might be sleepwalking through existence, sensing that something is wrong but unable to name it. This might be the wake-up call they need. And subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep exploring these deep questions together. Questions that most of the world ignores but that make all the difference in how we live. Heidegger asked us to remember something we've forgotten, not a piece of information, but a way of being, the way of dwelling in existence rather than conquering it, the way of questioning rather than assuming, the way of facing our mortality rather than fleeing from it. You are Dasein. You are the being for whom being is a question. This is your burden and your privilege. No other being in the universe has this capacity. No rock, no star, no animal wonders about what it means to exist. Only you. What will you do with this strange gift? Will you continue falling into the they, living someone else's life, fleeing from death into distraction? Or will you take up your existence as your own? Will you face your finitude? Will you choose your life rather than having it chosen for you? The answer can't come from me. It can't come from Heidegger. It can't come from any philosopher or teacher or book. It can only come from you. In this moment, as the being you are, facing the death that is yours, choosing the life that could be yours. If only you wake up. The question of being is waiting. It's been waiting your whole life. It will wait until you die. The only question is whether you'll answer it while you're still alive.